rather than Moscow. On the other hand, he had a unique approach, an approach of an ethnographer. I do recall him saying, I remember him saying, when he asked me at one of the meetings of the organization committee, he asked me, have you seen someone from Yoshkar Ola? It was very important for him. It was very important for him to find. And then he found Jews in Mongolia, in Papua New Guinea, and wherever. I believe that the need and the fact that Michael came back to his interest in the nations of the North as an ethnographer, well, it might mean that very soon they will become Jews. Thank you. Thank you. Here with us we have Robert Singer, who is representing the oldest Jewish organization that has been assisting Soviet Jews in the 20s of the last century, that is for 100 years. So can you provide us the view on Vaad and on Michael Chlenov from outside of the Russian Empire? First of all, congratulations, 80. According to the Jewish tradition, the life just begins. You start making wiser steps, which you still had before that. I believe that one of your main features is the ability to gather people of different views, different positions, different thoughts from different places, just like our public talk. Prior to saying about Ort, let me share a secret. I think it's not such a big secret. In 1987, I was a young lieutenant colonel of the Israeli army who did not speak Russian, and once I was offered to join the Israeli delegation at the Israeli delegation at the Moscow Book Fair in 1987. It was still wild. Straight from the army, I went there, and I found myself in Moscow in May 1987 with the Soviet Union still existing. And at the book fair, hundreds, thousands of Jews came from all over the Soviet Union trying to get into the Israeli pavilion. And there was only one person who was there for all the time, who probably read all the books we have brought, not missing a single member of our delegation, and it was Mika. Upon coming back from Moscow, I've decided that what I do in the army is very important, but it is much more important to deal with the Jews in the former Soviet Union. And then I came to the organizations of which no one had known. This organization Nativ, which very few people knew about in Israel, and they gave me several files I have to read, and no doubt the thickest file was about Michael Chlenov, his activities in encouraging the spirit of the Jews in the former Soviet Union. Definitely, no doubt, it was unparalleled and unprecedented. ORT is the organization that has been created in St. Petersburg 140 years ago. I would not want to speak about ORT now. I would like to say that Mika's influence on the Jewish education in the former Soviet Union is as well unprecedented. From the very beginning, he supported the Jewish education, and my last position was the General Director of the World Jewish Congress, and I do remember Michael's idea to create Eurasian Jewish Congress, which everyone viewed as wild ideas, because who are Eurasians? However, now I can happily say that Eurasian Jewish Congress is now one of the leading Jewish organizations with the efforts of Mika and Joseph, and it's a respected member of the international Jewish movement. And I still looking forward when we'll search for Jews in Indonesia. Well, besides Indonesia, there were also Antarctics. Several years ago, I made a movie about the Jewish movement, and then I got a few pictures about the organizations, Russian Jewish organization with the name Mashka. One of the leaders was Alexander Schmuckler. So they have discussed their secrets in sauna. So a view from there. Natella, thank you. First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone here. It's such a pleasure to see young faces of my friends and Michael's friends. I think we have to thank Yuri Kanner and the Russian Jewish Congress for this initiative of holding this event. Thank you for bringing us together. Thanks for bringing us together to celebrate Michael Chlenov's anniversary, who is our friend, our teacher. Adding to what Sam and Robert and Joseph have said, Mika, due to his nature, he's not just a born leader, but he's a unifying leader. This atmosphere of total love is the atmosphere he introduced to every meeting of Mashka. He has practically excluded any conflict or any issues which are normal for any small Jewish crowd. He managed to find compromise between different movements. I'd like to dwell on his unique ability to be not just a friend, a colleague, comrade in arms, but to be a teacher. I believe his merit is, his virtue is that he brought so many young people into the movement. At least in Moscow, I knew Joseph did a lot for this course too, but Mika brought a lot of young people. He was always surrounded by young intellectuals who were benefiting and keep benefiting from his wisdom and learn the principles of Jewish life, the basics of our culture. Being around him, we always had access to his vast knowledge, whom he has accumulated, and he generously shared this knowledge with us, the young people. And I believe this is one of his great achievements, because he brought into the Jewish movement many young people, including myself and Sam and many, many others. Therefore, Mika, congratulations, long and happy years. We need you. We need constant contact with you, because every meeting with you, be it in Moscow or in any other place of the world, is very, very important. I usually leave these meetings with new vision, with new understanding, with a new vision of what I have to do, and I thank God for this opportunity to be with you, to be so close to you for 40 years already. Congratulations on your anniversary. Thank you, Sasha. And we have with us online many people who were unable to be with us live, who were unable to join us live, but they have sent their video presentations. We have videos, and congratulations from Alexander Mashkevich, Eurasian Jewish Congress, Alexander Lyskovoy, president of the Russian Jewish Congress, Rabbi Goldschmidt. You know what? Now, in a few seconds, we'll turn on the video. I see here with us David Yakobashvili would like to say a few words, because today every word is in Michael's honor. Welcome, everyone. It took me half an hour to get connected. I've heard you. I just was unable to say something. Here I have, we are connected. We have deep friendship, relationship. Here is a poem I'd like to read. Dear Michael, where I can find words of respect to welcome you on your anniversary. To your health, to peace, for new achievements, for Marshansk, Germany and Indonesia, for the culture and poetry, to Hebrew, to many long years. And I want to be invited to your 120th anniversary. Wow, that's some claim. That's some claim. Okay, we'll get back to our videos from all over the world, from great people. Let's start videos.
Не слышно.
Нет звука.
Звука нет. У нас Машкевич без звука. Очень
No sound for Mr. Mashkevich. Great picture, very emotional, but no sound. 10 years. No sound. I had an opportunity not just to talk to you every day, but to learn every day, to get knowledge from your encyclopedic experience, to see your humor, to share vision of the mission and role of the Jewish people in the world. You are a happy person, Michael, because from the earliest years you have understood your mission to improve the life of Jewish people, to think about it, its mission, to analyze it, and to implement it. The entire world knows you and respects you. Hundreds of Jewish organizations are grateful to you for enormous contribution to the Jewish life of the world. You are a happy individual. You have a wonderful family and interesting life. And you had a lot ahead of you. For at least 40 years, you have to keep sharing your knowledge, your vision, and your ideas. And I treat you with great respect, wishing you health, happiness. Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done, for everything you do, and for everything you will do. On the eve of Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, let me say that I wish that God should inscribe you for the sweetest and the best and the happiest New Year and put a seal on it. Mazel tov, congratulations.
Это был Александр Машкевич, который
It was Alexander Mashkevich, who was for many years leading the Eurasian Jewish Congress. I see a lot of messages from individuals and organizations who are sharing their good wishes as while we are waiting for the next video. Since we would like to have a dialogue, but we are afraid for the sound quality because we get some jamming here. So I am asking all of the participants, all the panelists, to think of a word, just one word, which characterizes our birthday boy. I thought a lot about it, and for me, Michael Chlenov is energy. Who's next? What the next? I'd like to add one important thing. For me, Mika is first and most of all the great Hebrew teacher, as he's been for many, many others. In my opinion, enlightener, a person of deep vision, kindness, and generosity. Who's next? For me, Mika is a person of encyclopedic knowledge who always amazed me with his memory, intellect, and the depth of his knowledge and erudition in many different humanitarian areas. And definitely he's a well of information, inclusiveness, wisdom. Great. David, a fearless fighter and a winner. Michael, what about you? What do you think is the main in your activities? Well, finally now I got a floor. I hope I will not be interrupted by the jammers, by the jamming. Listening to you, thank you very much. I start understanding I began to understand myself now and say, well, I do have something. I didn't know that. What the main in my activity for me, that I got pleasure for it. I got satisfaction, whatever I was doing in my life. And I would like to keep it that way. Natella, when you gave me the floor and it was jammed by enemies, I wanted to say, you asked me about Va'ad, and we have recalled this period, this time 30 years before we have celebrated recently. And I've recalled my conversation with an American Jew. Unfortunately, I do not remember his name. It has been published somewhere. And when I started telling him that there is and there will be a considerable number of Jews in the former Soviet Union, he interrupted me by saying that we have two images of a Soviet Jew. Either you are being hit with a stick into your head, or you're packing your suitcase to leave for Israel. We do not have this idea, this notion of you staying. So I believe that in those days what have passed through, what we have contributed our forces, I see here people. Easy Libler, Evan Kotler, Mark Levin, and some more people at this time. We made history when you have decided whether to evacuate everyone or not. And I do recall that a few years later, in 1993, when I came to Israel, to a large Sochnut event, large Sochnut meeting, and that the head of Nativ was saying, and he said, I'd like to tell all of you that in 6 or 7 years, we'll have no more Aliyah. We'll talk just about absorption, because there will be no one left. So at that time, this was a very important issue for me. First of all, I would like to let the world jury know that definitely there will be a significant amount of Jews staying. As of today, the Russian Jewish community is number 5 in size in diaspora. I mean, it has not disappeared. I'm talking about just about Russia. We'll talk together with Ukraine, Belarus, Azerbaijan, and many others. We're still an important part of the world Jewish community. And my understanding, about 3 million Jews are now all over the world who still, volens nolens, whether they want it or not, perceive themselves as Russian Jews. Thank you, Michael. There was an old joke that the Jew who's living last should turn off the lights in Sheremetyevo, and I believe Michael was one of those who prevented this turning off the light in Sheremetyevo. And it's very important for me. It seems I've seen someone wearing a mask and who disappeared. In your opinion, what is the peculiar feature of the activity of modern Jewish organizations in Russia with no anti-Semitism? Well, there is maybe street anti-Semitism, but no state anti-Semitism. Who's the first to start? I can't hear.
Да, еще раз здравствуйте. По закону жанра я должен говорить.
Well, I have to say just a few words, briefly.
Но всегда готовым что-то сказать.
But I have always to be ready to say something.
Антисемитизм есть везде.
is everywhere. And probably partially thanks to that, the Jewish community has been preserved, because in the negative self-identification, anti-Semitism does play a role. What the task of Jewish organizations in Russia? Well, there are so many Jewish organizations in Russia, and their tasks are so different. If we go back to Michael, his great merit is that while participating in the activity of many Jewish organizations, he never forgot about himself being Jewish, because in many cases, Jewish organizations were forgetting of them being Jewish. So his presence balanced. Yeah, we have already mentioned this today. Therefore, there are many tasks a lot of work for Jewish organizations, but the very important thing is that we have to understand that with all these great tasks, we should not let the tail to rule the dog. Because all of the Jewish organizations, we work for the Jews. Yes. At the same time, we should not become a tail. Yeah, this was Yuri Kanner. For those who are with us, we'll have part 2 of our session. There are many regions, but we'll have a second part presided by Mark Levin from the National Conference of the Soviet Jewry, with many participants. And I promised that there are many recorded greetings. Now, let's start their videos, congratulatory videos, and I would like to ask Michael, what would you like to wish yourself Well, I wish myself to keep getting pleasure from everything I do. Well, you just cannot do in any other way. Well, I'm trying. I keep trying. I keep trying. Any of those present have some unusual wish, something out of the box? Well, it's difficult to think out of the box in this situation, but health, first of all, and strength, physical strength to continue, to go on. Just one word about the mission of Jewish organizations. Staying for 5 years in Moscow as the representative of the State of Israel, I had an honor to meet all the Jewish organizations, or at least the majority of the Jewish organizations of Russia. And in my understanding, the meaning of the Jewish organizations in Russia is, first and most of all, a very important job, a very important work that they keep doing for the Jews to enable them feeling Jewish, both in circular and religious events. Everything is related to the changes in Russia, and I wish that the changes we do feel in the Jewish world for the last 20, 25 years to go on. Thank you, Dorit. Thank you, Dorit. Now we'll watch several videos and then proceed with our anniversary program. When I came to Moscow, you know, the first people who I have encountered was you and Irina Markovna. Thank you for the support you've given me at that time. Were it not for you, I would not get an understanding of the Jewish world of Moscow and Russia, and maybe I would have taken a different road in my life. But thanks to you, I became part of this work. What did I like about you? Creativity. You are an artist from the capital A, with a capital A. Only you're not drawing or composing music. You are the artist of Jewish Renaissance. You have invented organizations. You have involved people into those organizations. You have assisted people to increase their self-consciousness, self-identification. That was a miracle. Vaad, I've met you when you were leader of Vaad. It was a great organization. Then you left it for other Jews to handle and have created another organization and another one. And sorry for modern slang, but that's what I feel. That's my feel, because you caused the Jewish world to stay within your tricks. Thank you. Thank you for being such a charming person, for being such a wise person. And I wish you to be happy and healthy for many, many years ahead. Thank you very much, and happy birthday. Yom Haledet Sameach. Dear Michael, dear Mika, you're one of the leading people of the Jewish community of Russia. I would like to congratulate you on your anniversary. I do remember the first time I've met you in Moscow. It was at the Vaad conference in Moscow and then in Riga. And that was a great time. I wish you, dear Mika, till 120 years in good health, with your great intellect, to lead our community and to be happy with the people who love you. Admir Vesrim, till 120. Dear Michael, I'd like to congratulate you on this anniversary. You are an example. You're setting an example for us how to revive a huge Jewish community from scratch, from zero. And I'm proud that for part of this way I was together with you when creating Vaad of Russia and Vaad of the USSR and then Federal Jewish National Cultural Autonomy. Thanks to your efforts, the Russian Jewry have come to the international arena, established close ties to Israel through participation in the Eurasian Jewish Congress, in the events of the World Jewish Congress. We stopped being the Jews of silence and became the important integral part of the world Jewry. It's great to be with you. Wishing you health till 120. And I wish your ideas coming to life in the future for the better of the Jewish communities in Russia. Mazel tov. Dear Michael, the family from the Middle East have already sent you greetings. Now, your friend from the Far East, from Birobidzhan, has come. We do appreciate what you have done for the preservation of the Jewish movement in Russia, including Jewish Autonomous Area. It was with your support that the Festival of the Jewish Culture in Birobidzhan took place, and one of the congresses of Vaad took place in Birobidzhan. Dear Mika Anatolyevich, it's such a happiness to have such a friend from all over the world in Vaad, also including the Far East. And on your birthday, let me send you from Birobidzhan the best wishes. Be healthy and strong. And we wish you Mazel, Glik, and Nachas till 120. And of course, we are inviting you to come to us in the next year for the Festival of the Jewish Culture. Let's thank all those who wished well to Michael. We are looking ahead for the English part of the program. I have seen great speakers here, and now I ask Yuri Kanner to summarize our first part of this public talk. Thanks a lot. Thank you all, dear friends. I was so happy to be with you. I see that Natella have not seen Joseph. Well, sorry, things happen. But let me boast a little bit. You've been all recalling the great days when we have accomplished something together with Mika. And I would like to boast that we are still doing things together. And not just doing now, but we're also planning some great things ahead. That makes me proud. I would like to thank Mika for his cooperation. Our next hour the session will be chaired by Mark Levin. Mark Levin is a person who have discovered America for us. And thanks for that. We've learned a lot from him and through him, and I'm very glad to have him with us today. We'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Всем здоровья.
And stay healthy. Stay healthy. And I wish we should meet offline and hug each other. Please stay with us. Stay with us for the English session. There will be simultaneous interpreting into Russian, and it's going to be interesting. Stay tuned with us. Stay with us, please.
Hello, Izzy.
Mark,
Hi.
How are you?
open the microphone.
Good to see you.
Oh, Malcolm. Ah,
Yeah, good to see you.
good to see you all.
Yuri, thank you for those kind words. I appreciate the introduction. I hope everyone, until it's your time to speak, will stay muted, and I will call on you. I hope those that were here for the first hour will stay with us. I want to welcome our global audience. For those that didn't hear the introduction, my name is Mark Levin. I'm the CEO of the National Coalition on Eurasian Jewry. We're here to celebrate and honor Mika Chlenov's 80th birthday. I want to thank the Russian Jewish Congress and Yuri Kanner, its president again, and the Chlenov family for organizing today's event. We have an all-star cast of speakers from Israel and the diaspora who will share their reflections about Mika. After the formal remarks by our distinguished group, we'll hear from the guest of honor directly, Mika Chlenov. Time permitting, I will ask a few questions to the group. I've had the good fortune to know and work with our guest of honor, as well as all of the speakers, for more than 30 years. Every one of them contributed to the changing of the history of modern Jewry by their roles in the Soviet Jewry movement and afterwards. Our guest of honor, Mika Chlenov, has had a foot in both the Aliyah emigration movement and the development of Jewish life in Russia over the last 30 years. Mika was born on September 26, 1940. He comes from a long line of Zionist activists going back 3 generations. He's an ethnographer by profession. He spent many years researching native tribes in the Arctic. He began his involvement in the informal Jewish national movement in the early 1970s. He became one of the earliest Hebrew teachers. Few people know this, but by 1984, he was part of an international group that actually did a study of the Jewish population in 1984, something that was not, that was not in favor by the Soviet government. He was one of the founders of the original VOD of the USSR. After the fall of the Soviet Union, he became president of the VOD of Russia. He began his involvement with the World Jewish Congress in 1991. He also co-founded and served as the president of the Euro-Asian Jewish Congress for 16 years. Mika is a special individual whose intelligence, commitment, courage, and doggedness helped create one of the most dynamic diaspora communities in the world today. His willingness to go against the grain and challenge accepted norms sets a standard for all of us. It's been my privilege to work with Mika, and it's been a privilege of our organization to work with Mika for 3 decades now. We've relied on his advice and knowledge and his commitment to doing what's right. We'll start today, I hope he's on, by hearing from the current Minister of Health for the government of Israel, Yuli Edelstein. Yuli, are you on?
I am. I hope you're all in good health.
Please take it away. Another good friend of mine, Yuli Edelstein, who really needs no introduction, but I think we all know he was a former refusnik, former prisoner of Zion, has served in many capacities in government, including Speaker of the Knesset. Yuli, it's my privilege to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Hello to you all. And Mika, I was asked to speak in English for whatever reason, but then I realized that with you, that's the problem, you know. Any language any one of us can pick up and start speaking, you will understand. So whatever they said English, so be it. I do have to say that my first memories of Mika Chlenov, I'm not the only one in this audience, are when I was a very young and starting activist in the movement, and Mika was already one of the great experts on the Hebrew language, with students around him and followers and so on and so forth. To say nothing about his, as we all know, special academic background. So I remember looking up at him. That was not so easy, as you can imagine, to look up at Mika Chlenov. But I do think that his role in the movement those days was really very significant. And days went by, and some left for Israel, some left for all kinds of distant places, and Mika always stayed and was active and without ever disappearing. Was always part, not just of the movement, but part of the leadership. Which brings me definitely to the days of Mashka, that informal group of people, some of them are with us, some of them unfortunately are already not with us, but Mika was very instrumental there and took care of many different aspects of the movement in probably most difficult years. We are talking about the early 80s, with all the crash that the then leadership and KGB, or the former Soviet Union, organized on the Jewish activists in general and Hebrew teachers in particular. And I think that Mika's role there was really, really, really important. As you all know, unfortunately, I had to leave Mashka for objective reasons and travel to Siberia at some stage. And not only me, but also Sasha Ephraim Cholmiansky and some others. But Mika continued. And so it happened that in that very, I would say, unstable period of the transition from our underground activities and our fight without compromise to leave the Soviet Union and move to Israel, Mika was one of the bridges that managed to connect that not very obvious, I have to say, connection between the underground activists and the new opportunities and the new leadership that appeared on the stage together once again with Sai. I don't want to start with name dropping because there are so many familiar faces and friends and real leaders from all over the world here that I'm trying to avoid names, but you all can easily imagine the names behind every sentence that I mentioned here. So as I said, Mika was very, very instrumental in that transition period, turned into one of the leaders of the new Soviet Jewish community, if I could define it this way. And as I think Yuri was the one who said that today we are not just celebrating Mika's role in the past or things he has done. Mika, you have at least 40 years to go. I think that there are still lots of challenges in this dynamic world. And I just want to wish you be as productive and as creative as you have always been, and to continue doing all the good things on behalf of the Jewish people, the Jewish community in Russia and the former Soviet Union, Jews all around the world, to continue everything you've been doing. And you know what? I know it sounds like a cliche, but the very fact that in these challenging times, all of us scattered all around the world, I see people here in Israel and the United States and Russia and the Ukraine and you name it, all of us all around the world on the first call join this celebration. I think this is the best proof of your role, of the appreciation we all feel towards you, of the influence that you've had on all of us. And as I've said, my only wish is that you continue like that for many more years in good health. And what can I say? I hope that when you turn 90, we'll all be able to celebrate without Zoom and video conferences and attend the real celebration, and in the good old tradition of Mashka, have a nice L'chaim with you on that happy occasion. Thank you, and it's really great to see you even via video.
Yuli, thank you very much.
Дорогой.
We
Спасибо
appreciate
тебе.
you joining us.
Скажу по-русски. Да, ты прав.
Спасибо и тебе. Меня просто заставили по-английски.
Thanks.
Я
I was
понял,
made, I
да,
was
но
forced
я
to
все
speak
понял,
to
что
speak
ты
Russian.
говорил.
Well,
Да.
I did
То,
understand.
что
I
мы
did
здесь все
understand.
вместе, это все равно очень здорово.
We
Ты
were
прав.
together, and it's great.
Удачи и всем вам. Удачи тебе особенно, Юля.
And good luck. Good luck to you.
Непростое время. Спасибо.
We'll otherwise we'll never we'll never finish. There are a lot of people who want to share their greetings with you. So the next person we're going to hear from is Natan Sharansky, someone we all know, admire, respect, someone who's also was a former refusenik and former prisoner of Zion, and has gone on to do incredible things in Israel. Natan, are you on?
Yeah, I am on. Mark, thank you, Mark. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Do you hear me?
Yes,
yeah, good.
We do.
So, thank you. I'm glad to see so many friends. Mika, I think there is no debate that I'm the oldest. Among all those people, I know you more than anybody else, because already in 1972, 73, I was studying Hebrew in one of the underground ulpans, and Mika Chlenov was my teacher. So if anybody has any questions why my Hebrew is much worse than you understand, well, Mika was my Hebrew teacher, and he had one very important rule. Ein sipur, yesh yain. If you didn't prepare your home, you bring bottle of wine. You remember, Mika? So we drank a lot of wine during our studies of Hebrew, what created very good atmosphere also for me and the new pupil who joined Mika's group, Natasha Stiglitz, who later became Avital Sharansky. So it was a very good place, Mika's lessons. And I remember one of the stories of those days, 1973, when we mainly lost our jobs because we were refuseniks, and of course there were different types of persecutions. But Mika was very respected member of academy, and he was in the Institute of Ethnology. And sooner or later it was clear that KGB will reach him. Really, one day, the head of his institute calls him and says, look, we suddenly got this inquiry from KGB. I didn't know you're teaching Hebrew. Why you are interested? We are scientists. We know that there are dead cultures. The time for cultures comes to be dead. For example, we all respect Etrusc culture, but it's dead culture. Why to teach Hebrew? And Mika Chlenov told him, you know, if I were Etrusk, I would teach Etrusky. I would say differently. If Etruskim would have Mika Chlenov, they will not become a dead culture, because Mika is one of those who did everything to bring it back and to teach us. And Mika, what I can tell, I can only give you one more present this on the 80th anniversary. As you remember, all our life, we had a big debate. Who is taller, you or I? And each time we meet, we stand near one another, and you see, I say, you see? And he says, you see? I say, I'm taller. He said, no, I'm taller. So in honor of 80th anniversary, I give up. You are taller, Mika. You're great. Mazal tov.
Thank you, Natan. And for those that don't know, Natan and Gil Troy have a new book. I would recommend it to everyone, and go out and buy it. Natan, thank you very much. It's good to see you, even under the pandemic situation. Our next speaker,
Yuli takes care of pandemic situation, so it's okay.
Well, we hope so. We hope so. But I also should be the judge as who's taller between you and Mika. I think I have a better perspective.
Well,
our
you're
next speaker,
on the different level. Yeah.
That's true. Our next
Оля,
speaker
спасибо
is...
тебе за то, что ты сказал несколько слов по-русски. Очень рад, очень рад.
Thank you.
Конечно, в этом есть элемент мифологизма, но тем не менее сказал ты здорово, спасибо огромное.
Thanks a lot.
Our next speaker is a world-renowned human rights activist. He's someone who was involved in the Soviet Jewry movement from the earliest days. He's a former government official in Canada. It's my pleasure to turn the mic over to Erwin Kotler.
Thank you, Mark. And it's a pleasure to be able to be with everyone here, so many chaverim, and to celebrate Mika's 80th birthday. A legendary Jewish leader. I recall when he founded the Congress of Jewish Communities in Moscow in 1989. I had the pleasure of being present at the time to his founding of the Euro-Asian the World Jewish Congress. Mika, you were there before Putin. You've been there during Putin. You will be the real legendary leader of both the former Soviet Union and Russia and Admea Vesrim. I just want to recall one particular vignette of our many experiences together. It has to do with what I call the Wallenberg-Sakharov connection. In 1989, we established an international commission on the fate and whereabouts of Raoul Wallenberg. Members of it were Guy von Dardel from Sweden, Gidon Hausner, Zichronon Livracha, all of them really, and Elie Wiesel, myself. And we needed one person from Russia who we could both trust and would be respected by the Russians. That was Mika. In November 1989, November 24th in particular, we went to visit Andrei Sakharov, Mika and myself. Sakharov had said that he had, and you remember this, Mika, he had some information that he wanted to begin to share with us about Raoul Wallenberg. He believed that Raoul Wallenberg was still alive somewhere between Moscow and Leningrad in a psychiatric prison, and he was investigating this. But as we were in his apartment, there was a telephone call. The call was from Francesco Janusz of Charter 77. He called to tell Sakharov that the Politburo in Czechoslovakia had fallen, that there were 250,000 in Venislav Square cheering and celebrating. And he turned to us, I still remember, had tears in his eyes, and he said, I feel 21 years younger tonight, because he was remembering 1968 and now the great heroism of 1989. He then asked when I would be back in the Soviet Union so we could discuss further Wallenberg. He was doing investigations. I said I was returning for the Congress of Jewish Communities that Michał then was founding. On December 14th, we had arranged that we would have dinner in Moscow that evening. I flew from Montreal that morning, arrived in London. I called my wife just to say that I'm continuing to travel to from London to Moscow for my dinner with Andrei Sakharov. And my wife said to me, sorry, you won't be able to have dinner. I said, why did he cancel? She said, no, he died this morning. So rather than get together and dinner, we attended his funeral. But at the Congress of Jewish Communities that Mika founded, we then dedicated a Wallenberg Lectureship in Human Rights that I was honored to give, and dedicated it not only to Wallenberg and Sakharov, but to the heroic revolution of the struggle for Soviet Jewry, many of whose participants are here today. I'll just close by saying that in May 1990, Gorbachev visited Canada. We presented our report to him, re Wallenberg, where we had determined that the evidence was incontrovertible that Wallenberg did not die in 1947, compelling that he was alive thereafter, etc. And Gorbachev then arranged for us to visit Vladimir prison. So my last experience on that issue was Mika. We spent 5 days, if you recall, Mika, in Vladimir prison, which actually validated a lot of the things in the Wallenberg report. So I'll close here just by saying I have the best of memories of our encounters together, Mika, in Yerushalayim, in Moscow, in New York. And all I can say, and join everybody else, is to say, Mazal Tov ad 120. May you go from strength to strength, Michael L'chail, and we look forward to your continuing legendary leadership on behalf of the Jewish people, the people of Israel, and really the human condition. Toda, Micha.
Thanks so much, Erwin. It's really a very big pleasure, you see, to listen to what you told, and so many memories what we did actually together. The Vladimir prison and the evening with Sakharov and all that, and the last also meeting in Ottawa, where I finally saw you and your family. Thanks so much. I think we shall be together the next 40 years. We are age mates.
Erwin, thank you very much. We really appreciate you joining us, and I hope all of the speakers can stay on for the program, because we want to try to engage in a conversation after the opening remarks, given that all of us have had the opportunity to know and work together, and I can say accomplished so much over these last many years, and more to accomplish. The next two speakers are two people who have had a profound impact on my life and my career. And I'm forever indebted to them, as I am to all of the speakers, but they played a very special role for me over these many years. I'm talking about Jerry Goodman and Malcolm Hoenlein. Jerry and Malcolm, are you on?
I am.
Malcolm, why don't we start with you, and hopefully Jerry will join the conversation.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank the conveners, because this is really a very special reunion, something we desperately need at this time of COVID, to be reminded of the past, because Jews look back in order to look forward. And I think that this is an opportunity for us, not just to celebrate an individual and the incredible impact he had on all of us and on a movement that essentially changed the world, but it's a chance for us to reflect on our current time and what this means. I have known Mika for decades. I've had the privilege of traveling with him and working with him in his various capacities. In fact, when I first met him, he was taller than Mark Levin. And you see what the impact of working in Jewish life is in wearing us all down. I heard yesterday from one of our presidents who learned of this tribute, and he said he recalled meeting Mika on one of the president's conference missions in the Schwitz. And he said that he found him so fascinating, and he was sitting there talking to him, but he couldn't stand it anymore because it was so hot. And Mika remained so cool throughout and just kept going on. And finally, he came and he had to burst out of there and said to me, I couldn't breathe anymore. And then he waited outside for a number of minutes, he cooled off, and he went back in, and Mika was still talking, and they continued the discussion from that point. But he extolled how impressed he was, how impressed all of us always were by the wisdom. His very calm demeanor belies a very strong personality who withstood many challenges, internal and external, which we all know. And he was able to not only to overcome, but to build in constructive way and give voice to a community that too long had been ignored. And we were privileged to partner with the Eurasian Jewish Congress for many years on our trips, which they joined, or our joint efforts when we went to visit Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan and other countries. We were able to really forge a meaningful relationship that benefited everybody. And there was no one who walked away and didn't comment about this unique individual. And in his humble and manner, was able to communicate and to convey very strong messages. And this is so important right now at a time when young people, especially, need the kind of movement we developed on Soviet Jewry. They need the kind of commitment. They need to see heroes. They need to see leadership in a way that is absent today and has perhaps not been replicated since the days of the Soviet Jewry movement. And it will be more important. It is more important. And so by recalling and coming together, this is not just nostalgia. This is about the future. We say that Jews look back in order to look forward, that history for us is not about the past, but about the future. And I hope that we can somehow, in the discussion later, but more importantly in the future, build on this and remind this generation who know nothing about the Soviet Jewry movement, who know nothing about the individuals on this call, because we've tested it over and over again, even Russian Jewish Olim here who do not know any of the names and any of the history, that it will be a source of pride and of strength at a time when our community is being beaten down, not only because of external forces, but because of COVID and everything else that is happening. And that it will help them understand that they can stand against the biggest enemies of the world if we are united. It was the Achdus that Mika and his colleagues worked for and worked with us over the years to build a unity that transcended all geographic, linguistic differences, all the things that could separate, we overcame in the Soviet Jewry movement. And he served as a mentor, a colleague, and most of all, as a friend. He was one of the few consistent factors, and he was always consistent in the positions that he took, even when it came for criticism. So I pray that this is only another milestone in your career and your contributions to Jewish life. That Chazak ve'amatz, this was the test of a Jewish leader. When Moshe turned it over to Yoshua, he summed it up in 2 words: be strong and of good courage. All of us have met and dealt with people who had great courage, but no principles. We met many people who had principles and no courage. Chazak ve'amatz means be of strong and of good courage, that you have strong beliefs and the courage to act on them. You always did. You did it consistently. You're a model of leadership, and we thank you for all that you did, and hopefully for all you will continue to do for Am Yisrael.
Thank you very much, Malcolm. It was really, fantastic to listen to what you told about the fantastic and glorious movement for the Soviet Jewry, where we've been together. And thank you very much, you and all others, for that.
Thank you. Malcolm, thank you. And for those that don't know, Malcolm cut his teeth on the Soviet Jewry movement back many years ago. And look where you are today.
At Mark's bar mitzvah, we brought him into it, and thank God he's been a leader.
Has Jerry Goodman joined us? If not, it's my pleasure to go to our next speaker, someone I met in 1984 for the first time in Washington, D.C. Izzy, I don't know if you remember that or not, but it was when the World Congress got together. And I still remember sitting in the conference room in our offices, hearing what I thought at the time a strange accent, but someone who knew very much of what he spoke. Izzy Liebler now lives in Israel, but for many years he was a leader of the Australian Jewish community, a leader in the Soviet Jewry movement. He's now a well-respected columnist and pundit and significant presence in Israel. Izzy, it's a great pleasure to welcome you and ask you to join the conversation. You have to unmute. Izzy, we can't hear. I'll tell you what. Well, Izzy, we still can't hear you.
Mark, let me say a few words probably before Izzy comes to the radio. I want to stress here that Izzy was actually the first one who came from outside Soviet Union in order to start and build the Russian community or the Soviet community inside the Soviet Union, not outside. That was an absolutely outstanding step, which he made in 1987 when he first came to Moscow and started what I and all of my friends continue to do after him.
How's that now?
You're on.
Oh, Baruch Hashem.
You're on.
Okay. Mickey, I'll be as brief as I can. We go back over 40 years, and I recollect those early 40 years when I was meeting on behalf of Lishkat HaKesher, the key refuseniks, and Mickey, you always stood out amongst a group of what I would call outstanding geniuses. Every one of them was an intellectual. And I don't think people appreciate today what those people represented in intellect, in idealism. You could feel the finger of Hashem in those people in the revival. And Mickey, you were unique in the sense that you created a massive cultural movement amongst these people. You were the secular cultural leader. You were the Hebrew teacher. And I remember with great embarrassment when in my broken Hebrew, I started addressing some of the refuseniks, you were correcting me, which is a sign of the times of what it was. Mickey, I want to go back and say something very, very frankly here, which I've got to be careful how I say it, because ultimately this is to your great credit. I considered that the movement that we were fighting for was an Aliyah movement. And I felt that those that remained behind or went away would be lost to the Jewish people. And I was disappointed when you were not an Oleh. But I must confess, in retrospect, you have proven that your purpose, objectives, and activities were critical for the Jewish people, because you, amongst others, helped the revival of what we thought was a dead people, the remainder. And we have Jews still coming out from the crevices. And you always told me this, and I didn't believe it, but I do believe it. And I say to you, Kol HaKavod, you were one of the great leaders in this movement, and the credit for the revival of Russian Jewry, you are a major contributor. So I want to say again to you all, Chag Sameach and Ad Mea V'Schim.
Izzy, thank you. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Izzy, also very much. And say also, I'll bring my love to Naomi. So she is also around there. But we saw only, not in the center. Yeah. Thanks, Naomi, thanks. Yeah. We always remember you, and all of you. You really were tremendously active and tremendously helpful in an idea which actually so many of different people in the world thought that it's a silly idea of revitalizing, say, the Jewish community of the former Soviet Union. Thanks a lot.
Our next speaker is someone I've known for many, many years, good friend. We've worked together, traveled together, cried together, and was one of Mika's closest confidants, friends, and I even believe a relative through marriage. He is a former president of NCSEJ, a former refusenik and someone who has made great contributions both in Russia, in the United States, and in Israel. It's my pleasure to turn it over to Alexander Sasha Smuckler.
Hi, everyone. I'm the only one who is privileged today to speak for the Russian audience, and now I'm speaking for the English audience. And basically, I already told that Mika is not only friend and mentor, but he also is a true leader. And I was privileged to work under him in Mashka for several years when Mika was working on the transition from underground movement, creating a legal forms of the Jewish community in the former Soviet Union and lately in the former Soviet republics. It was one of the most important part of my life when almost on daily basis I was working under Mika's supervision as a Mashka member and as an editor-in-chief of Informational Bulletin. And it's basically Mika gave me not only understanding and vision of my future role in a Jewish world, but also he was one of the believer that not every Jew will leave Soviet Union and make Aliyah, but a substantial number of Jews will continue living Soviet Union or in Russia. In that time, we didn't even think that Soviet Union could collapse in one day. But Mika believed that the Jewish community in Soviet Union will exist and the Jews will come back to their roots. And he was working tirelessly in order to implement his vision and create and found a platform for the legal activity of different Jewish institutions. He is a great teacher, a great mentor, outstanding intellectual, and I'm privileged that I know him for so many years. Mika, I hope many, many years to come, I still will consider myself as your student and pupil. Every time when I'm coming to Moscow and spending Shabbat dinner in your house, it's like a new page in my life. Thank you very much for being a true friend and a mentor.
Sasha, thank you very much. Mika, you've heard a lot of very nice things said about you over the last 45 minutes. All deserving,
Mark, absolutely.
All deserving. And I want to turn the floor over to you, and then afterwards throw out a few questions. But for our global audience, it's my pleasure to have Mika Chlenov take the mic.
Okay, if you have questions, I'm ready to answer them. I wanted, but well, before that, Mark invited Jerry Goodman, which seemingly is not here yet and was not available. And I wanted just to say that the National Conference for Soviet Jewry, which now is called the National Conference for Eurasian Jewry, I think, or something like that. Mark, yeah, that's right.
Correct.
Was actually always not only, well, did some great and noble work for the Soviet Jewry and after that for the Eurasian Jewry, but were always not only friends, but also those who fought together with us. And specifically in the 1990s, when actually the problem of whether there will be any Jews staying there or not, the National Conference supported us. And I remember Jerry published a big article, Empowering Soviet Jewry. It has not been transferred actually to reality somehow, although somehow, yes, but in general, so as we thought it and we hoped it not. But it's very important that actually there were prominent leaders from the world Jewry, from the American Jewry, from Australian Jewry, from European Jewry, who really supported the great idea of, well, reviving, re-establishing the Russian Jewry as it is. Thanks for that. Now I'm ready to answer all the questions, Mark.
Sure. I want, since we have such a range of experience, I want to try to cover many parts of what's taken place over the last 40 years. But before I get to that, I just want to echo something, Mika, you said. I think one of the proudest moments of my being affiliated with NCSEJ now, NCSJ then, is that, like you, we did go against the grain of many people who didn't believe it was possible to have a Russian Jewish population at the end of the Soviet Union and moving forward after it imploded and turned into 15 individual countries. As an organization and the individuals who made up that organization, we took a great deal of criticism for supporting yours and others' efforts to become important parts of our Jewish diaspora, and also to become important parts of those who spoke or speak on behalf of the state of Israel. And it's your commitment to others made it a reality. And there are two people of blessed memory who were an important part of this, who I know would have been part of this celebration if they'd been here. But I'm talking about my predecessor, Martin Wennick, and a past chair of NCSJ, Shoshana Cardin, who were very important players in the early 90s to move the agenda forward. But let's go back a few years. I hope Natan and Yuli are still on. But what, and Mika, you can join this too. What was it like in the early to mid 70s when you were trying to begin to educate yourselves about Jewish culture, religion, the Hebrew language? And I'm not sure many people in the audience remember the pressures that all of you faced. So Natan, if you're on, can you start?
I think he's gone.
Oh, he's gone, yeah.
Oh, Mika, why don't you jump in?
Okay, well, so look, how was it like? It was like always. Yeah, I was not alone at that time. I started actually my Hebrew activity as a teacher in 1971, and I had my teachers. And my teacher is Paul Khan, is living in Israel already from the year 1973. And I'm still, well, in very good relationship. He's my teacher and my good friend. But there were also many others. I was not certainly the first, because it was not something that was absolutely unbelievable and so on. The idea was not there, that the practice was also there. There were already quite a lot of teachers of Hebrew. The matter was that we had no books for that. Yeah, we had no curriculums, and that was a problem which we really was forced actually to make it new, to make this from zero. That was quite interesting, but it was also very good. At that time, for instance, as for me, I knew that actually the world Jewry is standing behind us, supporting us. But at that time, Mark, I didn't hear about the name National Conference for Soviet Jewry, unfortunately. It was much later than I first, heard the name of organization of this and others, Union of Councils and so on. Rita Ecker with her group in Great Britain, the Israelis certainly, but the Israelis also, well, we haven't heard about Natif. And not only we had the feeling that actually the world Jewry is together with us. and they will not abandon us. And that feeling was so very, very important, actually. So that's what I can say. And I wanted to tell you that now, so 50 years or so, even more, yeah, after I started this activity, I still continue. And I wanted to show you a book which was published a few weeks ago, which I wrote together with Professor Marianchik, who is my student, and now lives in Israel. It's called Morphonology of Modern Hebrew. I'm not sure that the word morphonology is really so clear to everyone. It's one of the grammatical, complexities of Hebrew. So now we can, thanks God, publish it and distribute it quite freely. Well, that's really very good.
Mika, we're all your students, and we've been all your students for many, many years. Malcolm and Erwin, you were involved around this time, but from the outside, and then you traveled. You were one of some of the early travelers. What are some of your one or two of your most vivid recollections?
It's a question to me or to Erwin?
No, it's to Malcolm and Erwin.
I respect Erwin's age, so I will let him go first if he wants.
That's if he turns off the mute.
So then let me just say, until it gets together, my most poignant memory is getting arrested and being held both at the border of Untitled and in Kishinev, where they charged me with being a Zionist propagandist and all sorts of other crimes, and forced us to travel 55 hours to come back, and took me off the train at Untitled at the border and held my passport marching before me. And they found my tefillin in the compartment, and they brought it and said, "What is this? Take it apart." And I refused. And they said, "Oh, this is from your God. What is God going to do for you now?" And they brought all these brown-booted and uniformed people there. And then for more than 30 years, they barred me from the country. And they wrote articles which were very complimentary because they kept talking about this young couple that came there and were provocateurs. And even when Schultz tried to get me in on his delegation, they told him, "You want him, you stay home." And then I was on a Kodel and the same thing. We made up for it afterwards. But what most, when I look back in those days and you think the unthinkable, when I started getting involved in the early 60s and mid 60s in the Soviet Jewry movement and went to visit Yaakov Birnbaum, who should always be remembered. And, you know, he wrote about this skinny teenager from Philadelphia who came to see him, that Soviet Jews did much more for us than we did for them. They saved more of our kids than we saved of theirs. And it is really regrettable that our successes in saving Jews around the world has deprived this generation of the kind of causes that we had, and how willing all of us were to go. My wife, newlyweds, we went to Russia. There was not even a second thought about the dangers to us because we were able to fulfill the promise of never again that Soviet Jewry movement represented. And it was a very deep commitment on a part of people who I think really, it transformed a generation and many generations, not only the impact of Soviet Jews in Israel and here, but on the Jews who live in these communities as well.
Life-changing experiences.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Erwin?
Yeah, I also had a life-changing experience a number of times in the former Soviet Union. The whole experience with the Soviet Jewry was a life-changing experience for myself and for my family. I think that 3 of my children who went on Aliyah got their roots in the struggle for Soviet Jewry. So it's had a global impact. I even met my wife through the Soviet Jewry movement. She was working with Avital. I was then working on behalf of Natan, and through that we also got together in Yerushalayim. So it's had a transformative impact on my whole life. And Mika was a very important component of all that. I'll just close with one last vignette. In 2014, Russia banned 14 Canadians from the Soviet Union. And the other 13 were all those who had been very vociferous on behalf of freedom of the Ukraine, etc., including our now Deputy Prime Minister, former Chrystia Freeland. So a journalist called the Russian embassy. They said, you know, you banned all these people. 13 of them were very vocal with regard to the Ukraine, but Kotler wasn't all that vocal with regard to the Ukraine. They said, no, with him, we have a long history. It goes all the way back to the 70s, and it continues to this day, and he's banned for life. Now, I look back on that and say that long history, as I said, transformed my life. Mika, you are a very, very important part of that history. And as everyone has said earlier, and I join again, kol hakavod to you.
I would
Thank
like,
you,
if I could, I would like...
Sasha, we, I had the opportunity to meet Mika, Sasha Smuckler, and Roman Spector. I communicated with them, but I met them for the first time at a human rights conference in Paris in 1989. Now, we had a lot of experiences, some we can't share on this call. But Sasha, I wanted to ask you, because you're one who had a foot in the Refusnik movement and then helped propel the Russian Jewish community forward, along with Mika and many others. What can you share with us about what it took to go from being a Refusnik and an activist to then helping build this dynamic community that we see today?
It's Mark, it's a long story. I don't think so. We have so much time today to tell the story. But speaking about trip to Paris, where Mika took me with him and I was able to travel, Mika insisted us to take a train from Moscow to Paris. Because he said, I remember that time he said to us, guys, are you kidding? That's the first time we have a chance to go through the whole Europe. And there was a train I never even knew during the Soviet time. It was the end of the Soviet Empire. There was a train going from Moscow to Paris. So we took a train, and I don't remember with the sleeping compartment for 4. And I was going with Mika and Roman in the sleeping compartment for 4, and it took for us, I think, 50 hours. So we've been in the train for 2 days, traveling through Europe from Warsaw. The train stops in Warsaw and other places, and finally we came to Paris. There was a unbelievable journey, first time behind the Iron Curtain. But as I mentioned before, Mika's visionary and dreams about the future of Soviet Jewry was always unbelievable, and not many people really understand. And he was like a white elephant in the movement, because not only being a so-called kulturnik, but also he always believed and was speaking about the future existence and the future role which the Jews of Soviet Union will play, staying and will play as a community in the world Jewry. And he was obviously a minority of people who could ever imagine that the Jews will stay in Russia or in Soviet Union and will create a community after 70 years of assimilation.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Izzy, I was going to say, Izzy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think I go back in this movement further than anybody other than those involved in Russia. My involvement started in 1965 when I succeeded in getting the Australian government to be the first government to raise the problem of anti-Semitism and Aliyah at the United Nations. Now, I too, like Erwin and like Malcolm, well, certainly like Erwin, this transformed my life. My family and I are all on Aliyah, I think, because of the miracle that we witnessed and participated in. I too was arrested and expelled and told I would never set foot in the Soviet Union. But I was one of the first leaders that was invited into the Soviet Union under Gorbachev. And I remember people told me it's a trick. I went to the Moscow synagogue. I had opportunity there to speak in Yiddish. I gave a Zionist speech in Hebrew and Yiddish, and I had all the refuseniks who never set foot in that KGB center all come to the synagogue. It was an extraordinary experience. I want to ask Mika, while I'm on, one question. I had a terrible experience with one KGB man who was interrogating me and who was drunk, fully drunk, and who said to me he would like, his dream would be to see Jews hanging from all the lampposts. And I had the feeling from most of the Russians that I had dealings with that this was a feeling of anti-Semitism that was generally shared in the population. We now have Putin. What happens when Putin goes? Do things go back to the way they were, or do you think that Putin's influence will have made a permanent impact?
Great question to me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we have 1 or 2 minutes. I would say the following, that Putin is a very controversial leader, and much can be said about him, but certainly he was probably the first Russian leader in the history of Russia who has annihilated the state-supported anti-Semitism. And that's very important.
Yeah.
But I don't think we'll have much time for continuing this very interesting discussion. I'm ready to do it next time when we sit not in honoring myself, but in having some more interesting topics. I want really to thank all of you, very dear friends, actually all of you who are also my teachers and not my students. In a way, we are, all of us were teachers and students of each other. Thanks for coming. Thanks to the Russian Jewish Congress and to my very good friend Yuri Kanner, who actually initiated this event. I'm very, very I don't know what to tell. I've heard so much, so many pleasant words my address, which I haven't heard yet before. Yeah? And I want also, ending this, to thank another person who was very important and instrumental in bringing together all you together. That's my dear son, Matthew, who told me that, Father, I think, that I know, what will be the best way of honoring you. And he invited you all, thanks to Mocha. Thanks to you all again.
Mika, it's been it's our honor to take this time to honor you, to recognize what you have accomplished, what you will continue to accomplish. I also want to add my thanks to Yuri Kanner and the Russian Jewish Congress for helping to pull this together. Yuri would like to end and say a few words, and then please stay on because we have a couple of more videos. This has been it's been a real pleasure, and it's a privilege for me to moderate this conversation. And as everyone has said, Mika, we hope that you live to 120 and beyond. Yuri, take it away. Yuri, you have to unmute.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody. обычно я говорю мало.
Usually, I speak briefly during public talks. However, today I do have what to say. First of all,
Кто-то не обратил внимания, я
and
хочу
those who have not paid attention, I'd like to go back
правильное определение дал наш
to
старший
the right definition provided by Easy Libler. He answered, without knowing it, to Natella Baltanskaya's question that our birthday boy today is intellectual and romantic. And I would like to join him in this definition. I'd like to thank everyone because everyone has contributed part of his soul to our today's celebration. And I'm very happy to be able to celebrate the anniversary of our dear friend Mika Chlenov.
Ничто нам не помешало.
And
Ничто нам не помешало.
nothing interfered with this celebration. I'd like to tell you that we have a very successful public talk today. How do we measure success of public talk? Well, not everyone had a chance to speak. I've already gotten several complaints from the people who didn't have time to speak. It's great. It's great that we had so many guests and willing to talk more than we were able to host in these 2 hours. Thanks to Natella and Mark. And as Michael has already said, thank you to Mika Chlenov, his son, for his contribution. Thank you for your cooperation. And thanks to everyone who was working on the success of this event. Our next public talk will be during Sukkot and will be dedicated to Jewish home in its different aspects. You are all invited next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Birthday, many more. We look forward to continuing to work with you. I want to thank all the speakers, all the people who came on. It truly was a global audience from the 4 corners of the world. And Chag Sameach. This is the end of the program.
Thank you.
Дорогой Михаил Анатольевич, мы поздравляем вас с 80. Прекрасная дата. Вы для нас на протяжении вот уже почти 25 лет знаком с вами, не секрет оптимизма. Я благодарю вас за личную поддержку, и мы, конечно же, вклад в развитие Евразиатского конгресса. Шаги организованного мирового еврейства в конце 80-х и
We
начале...
appreciate your contribution in the organization of Eurasian Jewish Congress, the creation of modern Jewish community institutions. First of all, Hebrew structures of teaching Hebrew, training professional Hebrew teachers were established and continue with your participation. I'm glad to have you with us, and I hope you will teach us many, many things and will inspire us for many, many years with your discoveries and accomplishments. Mazal tov till 120. Dear, honored friend, congratulations with your next anniversary. You have taught me a lot of what I know and what I have learned throughout my life. Therefore, thank you very much for everything you have done and for your contribution in my life. Contribution to my life. My children, my entire family, we do honor you. We do respect you. Wish you long, healthy years, because you are bringing good and only good to the people. We wish you what every person needs. You teach respect, self-respect as a Jew, as a person, and you were able to speak with courage, to state your opinion under any president or leader. This is a great thing for the entire Jewish people and for me in particular. I've learned a lot from you, and I would like to wish you to carry on the same way, so I would be able to learn until my 100 years, to learn from you. Thank you. Thank you. Dear Michael Chlenov, let me, on behalf of Kaliningrad Jewish community and on my personal behalf and on behalf of all the members of our community, to congratulate you on your anniversary. Saying the verses in your honor, looking back at your career, we do see that you have accomplished more than Moshe Rabbeinu, and you are already leading Jews for 50 years already. And since you are still full of energy, we are ready to follow you for at least another 40 years.
Sure.
Thanks, Mika. Goodbye.
Mark, thank you. And
Mark,
Sasha,
thanks
Sasha
so much.
Thank you very much. Alexander, спасибо большое.
You're welcome. I'm glad everybody could be a part of it. Sasha, it's good to see you. Good translation.
Yes. Oh, how was it? Okay.
Very good. Very good. It's good to see you.
It's
Mika,
great to
have
see you.
an extra piece of cake for me.